We are here with Adam Tosto, who is the VP of Sales for Maison Villevert, and he leads growth in North America. He has 20 years of beverage sales experience and has a proven track record in building brands and developing sales teams. And in fact, that's what we're going to be talking about today because one of his sweet spots is on developing sales teams. So, welcome to the interview series, Adam. I'm excited to jump in with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure. I love what you're doing with the Slack group and all of the leaders in sales. This is great.
Awesome. Let's jump in. So, my first question to you, Adam, is how do you ramp a new sales rep so that they are up to speed within 90 days?
So, fantastic question. You obviously want to think to yourself that, okay, we got this person to come on board. There was something already built in that can get them to that starting line, right? So, I think it almost starts before. So, when you're looking for that person or recruiting or you found the right fit, it always has to have that one little piece, whether it's a soft skill or a hard skill when it comes to approaching like a sales call or how they're approaching their time with any product, to be honest. Because I always say you could have a medical, equipment salesperson sell cars, who could sell liquor, who could sell food. So that's always that first start. And then to get them ramped up the first 90 days is to have, in my opinion, which always works, is to have that 30, 60, 90 already ready to go, built out for them. So they have milestones and they have goals that are attainable, but are also ones that get them to the next one. So their 30-day goal milestone should already be leading them into their 60-day milestone and target. Same going into 90. And then as by the time they're at their 90, you would say, okay, I can take my hands off the wheel. So getting to that, I think education and training to start. The first 30 days have to be education and training, even if they've sold the industry that or worked in the industry that you're bringing them into. Not every brand is the same. Not every story is the same always. So storytelling, education, and training is key in the first 30 because you don't want to set someone up for failure, to be quite honest, by throwing them, as they say in the old ways, throwing them to the wolves in the field, and then there's no way that they're going to succeed. So, sorry, go ahead if you wanted to say something.
I have a million questions for you. So, okay, so in those first 30 days,
Yeah.
are you even allowing them to get on a real call, or is that strictly let's learn the product, learn our sales process, become an expertise in this area, and then after 30 days, so that's the goal of 30 days is to get them up to speed to kind of ramp them up. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
And yeah. And the key to that other part is to, again, if they're coming into the industry that if they're currently in your industry, which, a lot of times they are, where you're sourcing, a new salesperson, they should come in with a key account list or a key customer list that's ready to go. However, again, not like holding them back, but not getting them, because the last thing you'd want them to do or you to have happen is that they call their key relationships like, hey, Betty, how's it going? I want to sell you. This is great. Oh, well, where is it from? How is it made? Oh, I'm not 100% sure. So not only would they ruin their own relationship, which they curated, they would come off as unprofessional or, uneducated on the brand. So there's probably going to be those people come in and go, I can call my first top 50 customers and nail them to the wall. And that's great. And that's great enthusiasm. But let's make sure you're 1,000,000%, 999,000% ready to go, kind of a thing.
Fair enough. All right, Adam, you've built a lot of sales teams. So what my question is what's your process to build a solid sales culture without having to overpay your sales reps?
So, great question. I almost really don't like the word overpay, and I'll tell you why. I think that talent deserves what it deserves. So, I do always live in the moment where I pay people what they're worth. And I don't ever feel like I'm either underpaying or overpaying. So I think that there's two parts to that, and then getting how do you develop it. Like if you have a role, whether it's a sales rep, a sales manager, or a director role, you have a usually you have something that's like a number that's worth. So you kind of say, okay, this manager role is worth X salary because of what it has as a responsibility. So I want to say that I don't think I've ever underpaid. I don't think I've ever felt like I overpaid somebody. I think I've done my best to give each person what makes them comfortable and feel motivated to go out and do the position that they're getting hired for. So the key to all of that is the word I use, which is motivation. So I think motivation is the most important thing. So, and we live in the world that we live in. So, yes, money is always a motivator. However, there's also parts to that package that give people motivation, whether it's PTO, benefits, 401k, car allowance, any of the gym membership, whatever it ends up being. So, there's always a little bit more that you could always enhance someone's package with that. Now, in terms of motivating them to do the position, is some people get really afraid of over push, like pushing someone too far or not pushing them enough. So I think the key to building really great sales teams is kind of how you do the first 90 days is your goals are attainable, with challenges can always bring them to another goal, but it doesn't affect them actually hitting their real goal. So to say that the way I want to say it is that we have our goal that everybody's going after, and it is the company target. And so you make it attainable, but you have and I do as a director, executive, whatever have you, is I always collaborate on those goals so they don't feel like they're alone, and then have a little, kind of not use the word bonus, but a little bonus piece so that they see the regular goal that's like, okay, I can get to this, but this really nice one is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to go after it. And so everything that's built in the background, the planning for that, if they get to that bonus goal, we're all like slapping five and, having parties. So I think to wrap that up, I think that you, as long as you have your structures, your price structures, your compensation structures, like well aligned and balanced, I don't think you'll ever under or overpay anybody. So I think it's really about preparing your budgets, preparing your goals, and making sure that, everything changes as you're doing things. Things can come up, but I think that as long as the preparation and planning is there, then the motivation will be to get the job done, have a little bit of a carrot at the end, but know that it's a collaboration. So you're not just all alone doing it.
So let me ask you a follow-up question to this. So I know you do a lot of work before you even give the offer to the person to make sure that they're the right fit for your company and for the role. But what about those times where they kind of slip through and maybe they aren't the right fit, or maybe something changed in their life and it's just no longer the right role for them or the right timing for them? How do you adjust to that? Do you have a process where maybe you give them a certain time limit? Do you do extra training with them? What's your process for dealing with someone who is consistently underperforming and you're seeing a lot of red flags?
So, that's a great question. I always see there's always two versions of that. There's one version, like you said, where someone has something happen to them or an environmental impact, of whatever, that can take their focus away. And maybe they're not performing where you've had them perform before. So that's like one version of that. Or there's the other version, which I think you were saying also earlier, is that they may have slipped through. You're like, you know what, you kind of got this person here, but they weren't what you expected. There was too many areas of opportunity. So if there's somebody you don't think can continue to build, get back to where they were performing, or were just not a good fit, I think you do have to do the due diligence and give them a plan to perform in something that you wanted from the beginning, but you're seeing is not happening, with a proper timeline. So here are the goals for the next 30, 60, 90, 120 days, depending on how long you think it's going to take. And unfortunately, that sometimes comes with micromanagement, which I personally hate and I think is just a waste of time. But I always feel like everybody deserves a chance, even if they're the wrong fit, because maybe you see something that was really great for that person and you could help them go to their next position at another company or another job. So at least you help them say, hey, this is not for you, but I saw how you approached this part of your performance plan. And I think you could take that to your next job. And I'm happy to help, give you a rec for your next position. The other version, like I said, I did have somebody very recently on my team who did kind of fall off the beaten track that they had always performed on. And I took it upon myself because I saw something and I worked with them in a way that it wasn't clear I was micromanaging them, but I was spending extra time on our one-on-ones, in the field, giving them certain tools that they could build for themselves. So instead of me showing them how to build a pre-plan or a recap of what their week was going to be, I kind of said, here's someone else that's been doing this really well. I like your version. What do you think about this version? Is this something that you think you would use or it could help you? Yeah. And a lot of hey, let's think about how you would write that email instead of like this. I would personally maybe write it like that. So that person, for instance, was like a 180, no joke, came right back and exceeded expectations after coming short of expectations. But then I've had the other one where I had someone, it was just not the right fit. They fit better in a structure where there was more oversight and less autonomy. And we gave them a good rec and they went to a big company and they're very happy. So I think you kind of look at both versions of that.
Yeah, and there's always kind of different situations that come up. And as you get more seasoned in what you're doing, it's easier to recognize and know how to navigate that process.
Yeah.
Sounds like, at least from your perspective and from your experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is something that we see all the time, Adam. How do you coach a B player into one of your top performers?
Great question. And it happens all the time. And I think if you get to that point, that means you've already seen something in that person that you think they can be an A player. So that's, priority one. You wouldn't want to coach someone that's not ready or not showing that one, little tidbit of themselves that, okay, this person could really do this. So that's always the first thing, is that identifying that trait. The second thing is I like to coach by example. So a lot of ways that it helps specifically in our industry when it comes to alcohol sales and distribution and things like that is to just go and be with that person in a daily or weekly thing that they're doing, whether it's going to a distributor meeting, whether it's going to visit customers face to face, cold calling. And then one way I always ask, hey, how do you, now, if you've been with this person, you've probably understood their coaching the techniques they approach that they like. So hopefully it's where, okay, I'm going to kind of go in, I'm going to hit this account, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And then let's go, when we get outside, let's talk about it. And then the next account, you're going to go in, you're going to give your approach. I'm not going to say a word. And I always say, if you are dying in this sale, if you are crashing and burning, I am not going to save you. Or if you're crushing it, I'm not going to throw the pom-poms up. So I will go in, and it's a lot of observations and then a lot of hey, and I always, I'll take my notes. I try and keep them from anybody seeing that because I don't want to embarrass somebody in front of a buyer. And then the sidebar or the sidewalk conversation, I think, is very important. So when you get to that and you want to see, you're looking for something. So it's usually the first question I ask is, how do you think that went? And that's the answer. The answer you're looking for is if it's a B answer or an A answer. Sometimes a B answer is that went great. We're going to do great. And that was a total dud. And you're okay, they didn't see what they were supposed to see. Or if someone's I saw it at first, I think we can get it. Maybe I need to follow back up with some facts, some pricing. And I think then we can grab that sale. And I think this could be a really good account. Great. Perfect. And then, I always ask, what do you think you missed? Or what do you think you did really well? Because someone needs to be able to critique themselves to be an A player. If they can't, then you're either not seeing it, or you're cocky, or you haven't been coached the right way, in my opinion. So I think it's really by example. And then I always ask them, if they observe me, say, what did I do? Like, how did that go? Because I want to be open for feedback. That's another thing is humility and being modest, and not, being I'm the best, and, kind of a thing. So I always ask, like, how do you think that went? And I want them to, and I'm be honest, tell me, like, Adam, you were a little pushy, you could have backed off a bit, or that was great. I liked when you said this, or you used this fact, or you tied it to these promotions. So I think it's just a lot of observation, a lot of one-on-one coaching. And I like to just do it by example. I think if I have enough confidence in what I can do, especially if we get the sale, so it's got to be live. I don't want to walk into a milk run. I want to have it, give me a challenge. And that's the other thing. Last thing I will say is that I want a challenge. I usually ask them, who's your hardest buyer right now? What's the toughest nut you cannot crack? Like, who's been like blowing you off? You try and go in, they're like, no, I'm done. I don't need your stuff. Who is that? Let's go there first.
Very cool. And then show that maybe so in that situation, do you have them tell you why? Ask them questions such as, well, what do you think is going on? Why do you think it's not going well? Why do you think they're not giving you any time? And then you go and model it. Is that kind of your approach to it, Adam?
Yeah. I think, first off, yes, I want to ask them if, why do you think this is not panning out? Is it like, they're obviously willing to talk to you, but they're just not buying? Or are they just very rude? Is there someone else you can talk to? Or, are you not showing them the thing they're looking for? Because if they're gonna see you again, something is there, but we're not getting it, And yes, then when we go in there, that's when you can be collaborative. I think is that if there's that challenge and they've been there 3 times and they can't get any sale, let's go in and say, okay, let's talk, and I will try and observe what I think it is. And maybe I can then demonstrate that, maybe I have a tactic that'll work. But I want to see how they're going to approach it in a way that we got to get this sale, or I got to understand what's the obstacle? Like, what's stopping this from going through? And again, it's almost not about the whole sale. It's about understanding the obstacle, and overcoming objections.
And so with overcoming objections, do you tend to get the same type of objections or not necessarily?
No, never. I've never seen, and again, so it kind of varies by product possibly, or type of buyer. So there's an old way to teach sales that you have to identify the type of buyer, right? So in our industry, we have like 3 or 4 different types of buyers. You have like an old curmudgeon, who's kind of like set in their ways and they don't want to know about anything new. You may have like the one who thinks they know more than you do about your industry, or about your brand. Like, I know all about this tequila. I don't want to hear anything that you have to say. Or you have somebody who's kind of like open and collaborative, but you always want to have those retorts, or those, how to overcome those objections based on if you can identify the type of buyer. So if I back all the way up, but if we get to that challenging buyer, having the knowledge of what type of buyer it is always key. So that would have been identified. So if we're like, okay, we're going into, Betty's Bar and Grill, we know that this is an old curmudgeon. So we know what we're going to be building. Okay. So we got to get them out of their comfort zone. Be like, okay, we get it. You're strictly been buying Kendall Jackson Chardonnay for 30 years, but, there are people who are looking for this type of Chardonnay, or there are people who are looking for an unoaked Chardonnay from France, because people are tired of drinking a buttery Chardonnay or unoaked. And yes, this price is actually a little bit lower, and you can bring people in, whatever, freshens your oysters. And so on and so forth. So I think you have to make sure you identify the buyer and the objections and the obstacles so that you can actually build a proposal kind of.
Brilliant. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's so interesting to hear you talk because you're in the alcohol industry. But then I think of other industries. I'm like, it doesn't really matter what industry it is. You have those people who've been doing it the same way for 1,000 years, and you coming in saying you have the best technology that can save them a gazillion dollars in time.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter. They've been doing it a certain way, right? So you got to, and so what you're saying is you kind of get them to change somehow break through their mindset and get them just to open up a little bit to the opportunity or the idea. And I think that's when you can nail that, that changes the game. And that's such a super skill.
Yeah, thank you. No, it is. And it takes a while to figure out that, oh, I'm talking to an old curmudgeon. I should adjust the way I'm approaching this, as opposed to, talking about Instagram and this and the hottest. They'd be like, they don't, that's
Yeah.
not going to point B. You're just going to sit there and spin wheels. And there's another thing that I always want to show people is that having actual, and some people use data, but having actual something tangible to show them that, like, it's almost like free. Like if you give them, like, how about this? We come in and I will bring this tomorrow night, sit at the bar, and you have Casamigos margarita. Let's make it with this tequila. On me, try it, and tell me your top customers that will always order this Casamigos margarita and make it with mine. I'm happy to do a Pepsi challenge on me. I'll pay for it. I'll handle it. You tell me. And when the customers, which usually will be like, oh my God, this is great. What is this? Or why are you guys selling? Is this all taste terrible? Then you catch them in an aha moment. And I think then you could overcome so many things.
And just coming in and giving value, right? They have nothing to lose. They have
No,
nothing to lose, and you're going to sit there and you're probably going to sell more margaritas at the very least, right? So I think it's always a win-win when you can come up with some type of approach like that.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the version of a demo. So if you're selling something technology based or whatever, let someone demo it. Let someone have a trial, so they could see it actually work for their business. Same thing. I mean, that's part of your investment, right? I mean, now I don't mean to get too off the topic, but that's your investment in your business, right? You can't just say this is the best and this is the best and that's it. And someone's gonna be like, okay, well, how do I know? Show me.
100%. And then having a person who's there, it sounds like it's more of a strategy. You're more of a strategist with the purveyor.
Mhm.
So that's always an added value too. So, okay, Adam, where can we find out more information about you? Because you post all kinds of interesting information and you've been in the industry for so long. So where can we find out more about you?
Well, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can always find me on LinkedIn, Adam Tosto. Other than that, I'm always doing we do a lot of trade shows, a lot of events, and in different markets, and a lot of the big trade shows. But I'm always working so hard, so you can find our company at maisonvillevert.com. I will be, you know, always available via email. I'm always happy with that. You could always email me or send me a message on LinkedIn. I really do like using LinkedIn. It's really, I use it for what it is, which is just a really good tool to meet different people and interact in whatever industry you're in. So I know I'm kind of boring in terms of trying to find me other ways, but that's kind of it.
It's perfect. It works and it's perfect. Thank you so much for being here and providing so much
Oh yeah.
insight into
Sure.
the sales world.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. I think this, like I said, your Slack and all the things that you're doing with this, the Fuel to Fire is just really a great tool and resource for people in the sales industry. Because I think everybody can find something from someone else that's been doing that for 20 or 30 years, even if it's selling car parts versus tequila.
100%. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.